So hello and welcome. I am Tony Blunt, a Regional Impact Manager for myFutureNC. And along with my colleague, Chris Charbonneau, we are leading the statewide effort on the FAFSA Priority Network work. This is one of the strands of work of myFutureNC, a statewide organization with the vision of 2 million North Carolinians earning a post-secondary credential or degree by 2030. So we welcome all of you to the FAFSA Network webinar today, supporting students in navigating the FAFSA. We thank you for joining us, and we are thrilled to announce that the First in FAFSA Innovative and Grant Challenge winners will be sharing with us this morning their FAFSA completion strategies for the 2021 graduating class. School counselors and college advising corps advisors from these high schools will provide us promising practices used in each of their schools and districts. Additionally, we are going to demonstrate by live view of our FAFSA tracker this morning how to monitor the trends and the upticks in FAFSA completion across the state. And we're also going to have Chris kick off our 2022 statewide FAFSA challenge for us today. So just a few logistics about our webinar. We are recording today, and the recording and resources will be sent by an email post-webinar. If you have any technical notes or concerns, Chris is there working diligently in the chat, providing you links and information as we go along. As you've noted, you've been placed automatically on mute because of the number of attendees we have today. And of course, all questions can be submitted in the Q&A section, and comments can be listed in chat as we go along. So at this slide, I'm going to pass over to Chris, who's going to make some announcements and celebrate our 2021 Challenge and Innovative winners. Chris.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Charbonneau. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Engagement for myFutureNC. And can I just get a hands in the air, wave them all around? We are really, really happy and proud of all of our schools and our districts and our 2021 FAFSA Challenge winners. 499 public high schools participated in this year's challenge. This inaugural challenge had 100% of our 115 North Carolina public school districts that it had at least one registered. So if you want to go ahead and advance to our next slide, Tony, what we are incredibly excited about is that we are happy to lift up not only our FAFSA complete, but really lifting up those that we saw in high growth. So again, can we just give a nice little shout out here with all your hands waving in the air for all of our FAFSA completion and our FAFSA growth winners. I'll be putting the link in the chat momentarily. And I'd also like to do a shout out to our FAFSA innovation winners. These are individuals that submitted an application to show the kind of practices and efforts that they had at their schools, and we are proud to say that we've got 2 on our call today that will be sharing in those practices. We also have an innovation grant series video that we will also be sending out following this call for those of you that want to share in those practices with many other counselors, advisors, and any other youth serving organizations that support your school that would like to learn and maybe collaborate on ways that you all can continue upon these practices. I also want to have just a special mention to Hiwassee Dam High School. Not only did they win in their category for FAFSA completion growth at 28%, but I'm also happy to say that they also had one of the highest completion rates at 87.5% in their category. Because of our eligibility rules, schools could only win in one category, but it's really exciting when you see schools that are really lifting up. So again, great job on the growth today. We know that FAFSA completion is just such an indicator of students being able to go on. So again, thank you so much, and we'll go on from here.
Thank you, Chris, and for your excitement and your work on this effort. We know that the FAFSA completion goal for North Carolina is 65%. And what you'll see on the tracker shortly is that we do have some schools in our priority network and other schools across the state who have exceeded that goal. And for that, we celebrate. But for the overall, as a year-over-year comparison, we are down as compared to last year at about 7%. Therefore, the time spent today in joining other practitioners and listening to our panelists is critical as we strive to create an uptick in these numbers over the next few months. We do know that this is critical timing for our students in high school and our adult learners, that as they're navigating the process of where they will land in a new school year starting in August of this year, that this time in completing the FAFSA, receiving those grants and potential scholarships as a result of FAFSA completion is the door opening experience for those students to get going in post-secondary plans. So we are excited about working on this goal together. So as we look at the resources and the tools on the First and FAFSA website, we're reminded that we receive a bi-monthly newsletter that highlights our resources, our innovative practices, and our leaderboard. We also would use the resources and the tools on our website, track and study the data through the use of the FAFSA tracker, and follow the challenge that Chris will review shortly with us. So this is just a reminder slide of the things that are available to you in this network. So at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our panelists today. Ariana Harris is the Greene County Early College Counselor and a challenge winner for overall FAFSA growth in the Cooperative Innovative High School category. Glenn Miller is a school counselor at North Wilkes High School and a challenge winner for overall FAFSA growth in the small high school category. And then we welcome Rebecca Lester, who is from Person High School, earning the overall FAFSA growth in the large high school category. And I believe an innovative winner as well, right, Chris? And then Kiera Linder, who I just met in person recently at the Advising Corps Luncheon at UNCW, and a champion in her school at South Granville High School. And Kiera is an innovative grant winner. So each panelist will share their promising practices, and as questions come through the question and answer or conversations in the chat, we will help monitor those, and then we can also ask questions at the end for each individual speaker or as a group. So Ariana, we look forward to hearing from you first, so I will turn it over to you at this time.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Ariana Harris. I am the school counselor at Greene Early College High School in little bitty Snow Hill, North Carolina. And I'm excited to share some strategies that we utilized this past year to get our students to increase their rate of FAFSA completion. Next slide, please. So the first key piece is to start early. And to know your student demographic. The key to being successful at anything is to know your audience. So as a cooperative innovative high school, we are typically a lot smaller than a traditional high school. So we're able to use that to our advantage and really getting to create a personalized and one-on-one student approach as it comes to college preparation and FAFSA completion. We're able to really tailor everything that we need to do for each individual student. And we provide one-on-one student meetings from the time that our students walk in the door. There's a collaboration between myself and our college liaison. We meet with every student one-on-one just to, I'm sorry, I think, are you all able to hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. We're able to meet with every student one-on-one to create their individualized college plans beginning in the 9th grade. So college counseling really starts happening with our students as soon as they walk in the door. Our students are knowledgeable, they become knowledgeable about FAFSA as early as the 9th grade. And that's something that we pride ourselves on. We also have a freshman seminar. So each week we meet with our freshmen as a group and we give them information about applying to college. We guide them through the college admissions process. And our goal is to create a college going culture within our school environment. Next slide, please. We also educate our students on the fact that FAFSA is just one piece of the puzzle, and we really try to build that puzzle of the college admissions process by piece. One of the most important steps in that process is making this information relevant to students. When you're talking to students and you're talking about saving them thousands of dollars on their college education or what that looks like and how that translates in terms of student loan debt. The students are not connected to it, so they don't really understand it. So it's important to make it relevant. We give our students the why. We talk about all the components of being a well-rounded student, and we start that process again early. We help our students understand their ACT scores. We make sure that we break down the cost of college to our students. We also meet with every grade level weekly in a seminar class, and during that time, we talk about the breakdown of the cost of college to our students. We compare the cost of going to a public university to a private university. We talk about in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition. And we really make that come to life for students by giving them monetary figures and talking about how that saves them money. And again, we really guide that process. We start with that process, we start our students from start to finish. They have someone to help them one-on-one, to help give them the information that they need in order to be successful. And they're able to see FAFSA as not as this daunting process because they know that they have somebody there to help lead and guide them through the process. So it can seem like this big, scary application, but having someone to be able to sit down with you and your parents, to break it down, to help you fill out the application, to talk it to you about what your student aid report means, looking at financial aid award packages, it takes it and it makes it real and applicable to the student. And we look at creating a whole student approach to make sure that we teach the students about being a well-rounded student and making sure that they have all the pieces to the puzzle that they need to go into attend college. Next slide, please. The biggest component that has been helpful for us is our graduate seminar. We meet with all of our students in grades 12 and 13 and guide them step by step through the college admissions process in what's called a seminar class. This is a class that our students are required to attend every week. They do receive a grade for this class, and a major component of what we do in the class, of course, I teach the class along with our college advisor, is we talk about FAFSA, we talk about financial aid, we talk about the differences between student loans, we talk about and scholarships and grants, and we talk about the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. We just pack our students with an arsenal of knowledge as it pertains to applying and paying for college. And our seminar, through our seminar class, we also have different speakers from local community college financial aid offices, along with university financial aid offices and other admissions officers that give information on the FAFSA, and that information is available to the students and their parents. And we also do different activities to give students a reality check, so to speak, when it comes to the importance of FAFSA. We use College Application Week. Of course, everyone knows that NC Countdown to College is a major factor in promoting college admission among seniors. So we use that opportunity we use that week as an opportunity to promote FAFSA completion along with college applications. So we don't just talk about applying for college during that week. We encourage our students to complete their FAFSA, to complete their residency, and to complete all those different components of the college admissions process during that week. And we provide incentives for students and their families for doing so. Next slide, please. And the last thing we do is we like to build bridges to our community. Our students are not our only stakeholders. Completion of the FAFSA, it doesn't just impact the students, but it impacts their families as well. So we like to promote family involvement. And in order to do that, we like to put people in front of our kids that can help our kids and their families. So one of the major events that we do is we have a FAFSA night where we invite local community college representatives to talk about the importance of FAFSA. And we offer one-to-one help with parents in completing the FAFSA. We also create a school buy-in where we do a raffle for our senior students. So in order to be eligible to win a monetary prize, our students have to complete at least 2 college applications. They have to complete their FAFSA, and they have to show proof of completion of RDS. And that's a good check-in for me, because then I can make sure that all of my students are on track and they haven't completed any of the applications wrong. It gives me the opportunity, another opportunity, to sit down with students and to discuss their goals, as well as to educate their parents on the importance of completing their FAFSA and what that means for them and their families. We also have a FAFSA drive-in, and that takes place at our local community college, where parents who work odd hours or who are unavailable to come in during the week, they're able to drive through in their cars on a Saturday morning. There are stations outside with people who have laptops, financial aid officers that sit, and you pass them your paperwork and they help you complete the FAFSA right there in your car. And that's a very popular event for our parents and students. It's also for our community to make sure, it's important for our community, to make sure that we offer support in meeting the parents and the students where they are. So we have a high Spanish speaking population. So we also offer all of these services in Spanish and in English. As a bilingual school counselor, that is a great benefit for our parents and students, because I'm able to sit down and help our parents understand what it is that they're filling out, help them get the information that they need in a way that may not be readily accessible and available to them. Another part of what we do here is we have to do a lot of myth busting when it comes to FAFSA. A lot of our students feel as though if they come from a two-parent household, that they're automatically ineligible to apply for federal student aid. Working with some of our Spanish-speaking students, there's a common misconception that their parents' citizen status impacts their eligibility for FAFSA. So really talking to our families and explaining those different things to them, and taking, some of the barriers away and removing some of the fear in FAFSA completion. Also making sure that we're intentional about educating our parents that FAFSA does not even ask for their citizenship status, because there can be a little bit of fear around that. So really making sure that we get to know our parents, know our communities, and get everyone involved. We also involve the entire school in FAFSA completion. And it's a great tool because it gives the juniors something to look forward to, and it really just promotes this, this college going culture. You'll hear some of our underclassmen students ask our seniors, hey, have you completed your FAFSA? Have you done this? Are you eligible for the raffle? Are you going to participate in signing day? I saw the celebration that you had outside. We also have a graduate cookout where we celebrate our graduates for completing all of those steps, for completing their FAFSA. So for completing their FAFSA, for applying to college, completing RDS. So even students who may not believe that FAFSA is accessible to them, that college is accessible to them, they're encouraged to complete the FAFSA application and so that they can participate in all of these events. And that's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to you, Tony.
Ariana, thank you so much. And let's show Ariana some of our individual gratitude for her work and the work of the staff at her school. As I'm getting ready to pass it over to Glenn, let me just say a few connective pieces. I heard one-on-one connections with students. I heard whole student approach, whole school approach. I heard Spanish speaking services, and I heard myth busting. And with that, and just some of those key terms, let me turn the next section of our presentation over to Glenn Miller. Glenn, welcome.
Thank you. That's just my contact information. So if anybody needs to reach out, you can. So you can go to the next slide. So you told us to let you know a little bit about our high school. We're located in Hayes, North Carolina. Closest landmark, Stone Mountain State Park. We're very rural, very remote by most standards. I'd like to see like a list of remote schools, but we've got to be pretty far up that list. We're in the foothills between Boone and Winston-Salem. Per the myFutureNC data, we're 44% low income. I think our number is much higher than that. That's probably who completed the lunch form. We're not very diverse, 15% students of color. Last year, only 13% of our graduates went to a four-year college. The last time I pulled this data was from a PSAT years ago. But at that time, like greater than 80% would be considered first generation of college students. And there's so many definitions of that. I use the ones that would be a four-year college student. Last year, we had 161 seniors. This year, just 122, so my job should be easier. We have about 50 of those graduating early. Total student population 574. This last one's important. We're a Gear Up school, so I utilize Gear Up to help with this. It's me and a co-counselor. We've got a therapist that comes 1.5 days a week now, and a social worker that's here some of the time. Because when I'm working on FAFSA, having somebody to help student situations is definitely a bonus. Next slide. My strategies: just be persistent. I worked college and FAFSA into every single conversation with a senior. If they came to ask about a scholarship, have you done your FAFSA first? So just persistently getting that message out there. Even, I've got my administration on board and teachers, and they're helping to encourage students to do that, to do the FAFSA. Get personal. So what I did last year was I was on the phone a lot, and I would call every number in Power School till I got a hold of somebody. I called grandma if I had to get parents' numbers. And in my experience, once you got a hold of them, they was very receptive to the offer of assistance. They wanted help. They just didn't know what to do. I have found that emails, flyers, social media posts, those things have not been very productive for my population. I think just this year, we sent out about 160 postcards, asking them to make an appointment to do the FAFSA. I got no calls, none. So you have to reach out to them individually. I try to make completing the FAFSA the least stressful process I can. So I'll tell them to bring just the bare minimal materials. So phones for the student and parent, their 2020 tax returns, and driver's license. So even like the Social Security number, that should be on the tax returns. And I found in almost all cases, that's all they need. I don't have a lot of families with huge stock portfolios and things like that. We've got to be a salesman, be ready to tell them all the benefits of completing the FAFSA. I offer to help them do the 3 steps to college in one day. So they come in, we do the FAFSA, we do the residency determination, and the admission application all in one day. And we can do it rather quickly. I can't remember if I put this on another slide, but FAFSA nights have not been productive for me. I did one FAFSA night last year. I had like 5 families show up. One thing that was a little bit transformational for me on my thought process is we had an early release. So we had a FAFSA night from like 1 to 6 o'clock. And all my families came during the school day. And I thought, everybody needed to come after work. And it just seems like with my population, it's easier to get them to come during the school day than in the evenings. And we're just all so busy. So that was huge. Just learning that it's easier to get them in during the school day rather than the evenings and weekends. Other strategies, I start out with the easy FAFSAs. So kind of do a triage, look at all the students that's applied through Common App, CMEU, CFNC, the ones that's applied to the 4-year colleges. I have found typically a lot of those, they're a little more self-motivated and can sometimes do the FAFSA at home. So that helps a lot. So go with those, just look at your data. If they've applied to a 4-year college, then they have to do the FAFSA. So I start with those, just get the easy ones out of the way. McKinney-Vento students, FAFSA is extremely easy to do. I get that list from a social worker and I'll knock their FAFSAs out really quick. The RDS is a nightmare that needs to change at the state level, in my opinion. It's horrible and cruel to the homeless kids, but the FAFSA is easy. And list all help you can get. So the community college counselors, the financial aid counselors, admissions, Gear Up. We've got a career coach from the community college as well. All those have helped me. And then some keep your community college financial aid counselor on speed dial. I get their cell phone numbers if I can get them. And I reach out to them anytime there's a tricky situation. That being said, be confident. even if you're not an expert, you still gonna know more than what your families know almost all the time. And then that little question mark feature on the FAFSA is very useful. If I can't figure it out that way, then I just pick up the phone and I call. There's 4 people in their financial aid office at our local community college, and if I can get a hold of them that way, I'll start texting or Facebook messaging or some way of getting a hold of them. I just continued to monitor the CFNC Pro Tools. Every couple of weeks, I take a look at the First and FAFSA reports too, to just see how that data is matching up. I like to see growth there. And then another thing, I just talk to schools that are similar to you, somewhere that's located that's being successful. Like last year, I called Elkin City Schools. I can't remember if I called or emailed, just to see what they were doing, because they were killing it on the FAFSA and we were way behind. So I got some ideas from them. All right, next. And I guess that's my last slide. So I'll pass the mic.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I appreciate all of your comments. I took a few, actually a lot of notes, and some of the things that really stood out to me is being persistent. I appreciate that comment. All 3 steps in one day, I noticed in the chat, that's a hit. Getting all of those huge steps done all together. Great job. Connecting with the financial aid partners, key component, and using the Pro Tools report on the CFNC website. So using the First and FAFSA information along with the Finish the FAFSA report are critical. So thank you so much. And with that, we are going to turn it over to Rebecca from Person High School.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for letting me come and talk with you. Congrats to those other schools. You guys have had some awesome initiatives, and I kind of want to echo some of them. And I just kind of want to mention I'm from Person High School, and that's in rural Person County. It's located just south of the Virginia border. We are the traditionally only public high school in our county, which makes us a little unique. We have about 1,100 students. Our senior class is about 211 right now. Our demographics include about almost 50% of students on free reduced price lunch. And our makeup of our school is about 50% white, 30% Black and African American, 11% Hispanic, and about 7% 2 or more races, with 1% American Indian or Alaskan Native. We have an average class of about 25 with a student ratio about 15:1. We try to utilize our teachers and our staff for FAFSA. And one thing to mention too is our FAFSA completion rates over the years have looked very different. It's been a 45% in 2018, 2019, 38% in 2019 and 2020, which that was when COVID began. And 2020 and 2021, we had a 54% FAFSA completion rate. For our class of 2021, we had 24% of our students attending a 4-year school, and we had 43% going to community college. So the majority of our student body really needed to complete a FAFSA. They needed that for scholarships. And so we tried to get as many of them to complete it as possible in a couple ways. So next slide, please. So we had kind of a 3-pronged approach, and we kind of did a lot of the things that some of the other counselors have mentioned, but we kind of focus more on appointments, awareness, and then a final push for raffles and updates, which I'll kind of explain that shortly. Next slide, please. So for our appointments, and if you just hit that little arrow button one more time. Yes, thank you. So for our appointments, we did host some pretty attended FAFSA nights. Those were pretty great because we did do a virtual manner, so students could sign up for a 1-hour appointment with a PHS staff, so a Person High School staff member or a community college member, and they actually had one-on-one advice and support for an hour to complete their FAFSA. We did also provide one-on-one assistance through day and evening virtual and socially distant meetings. That was a really great way to meet families where they were. A lot of them needed to meet in the evenings in order to complete their FAFSA, so we tried to meet them where they were. We also had awareness. So as you can see on the right, there's this flyer. It was a story of an anonymous staff member's FAFSA story. She had completed her FAFSA not until she was actually in college. And the only reason why she completed it was because her family was not going to be able to allow her to continue going because of the financial burden of attending college. So her financial aid officer reached out to her, asked her if she did the FAFSA. She had no idea what it was and completed it and was able to continue her enrollment at college. So we shared that story out with some social media posts, but also through giving it to our teachers and our staff to hang in their classrooms or outside their doors. And we actually just posted that again for this coming year to try and increase the awareness for staff and also students. Our last main kind of initiatives were kind of more on raffle level and also some updates to students. So the raffle, you can kind of see on the right that we had made some raffle drawings and they were tiered. So we had 3 drawings and the students, after they completed their FAFSA, would be entered to win dorm items that you can see towards the bottom, like a TV, a microwave, and a kind of a laptop. And the earlier the students completed their FAFSA, trying to get them to complete it before the March 1st deadline for most colleges, the more tickets they would receive for the raffle to have a higher chance of winning one of those prizes. For a part of that raffle initiative, in order to get the awareness out, we actually sent individualized emails to students and parents, updating them about the current status of the students' FAFSAs. This was really helpful. My assistant principal, John Coquette, was fantastic and taught me how to use Autocrat, which is a tool in Google Sheets that allows you to use CFNC Pro Center data and individualize emails based off the student's completion status. Inside those emails, we'd include this flyer that had the update, as you can see at the top, your first name and the current status of the FAFSA would be updated based off the spreadsheet, and the raffle would share information about upcoming supportive events, as well as walkthroughs on how to complete the FAFSA with links to our FSAID walkthrough video, etc. This, I will say, is the best method for us. We use Autocrat for a lot of things in the school, but using that for FAFSA has been a great initiative and I highly recommend it for everybody. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. I love your ideas, your excitement. Some of the words that I heard from Rebecca's section included awareness, FAFSA stories, raffles, and then again, the word individual. I think that's the trend that we continue to see surface throughout our panelists, is that individual attention. So without further ado, I'm going to now turn it over to Kiara, who was from South Granville High School.
Hello, everyone. And then once again, just reiterating congratulations to all the schools. Thank you guys all for coming. I'm going to be, I believe, the last panelist. So I will just try to, squeeze what I've got in. Some of the things that I have in here have already been spoken about by other people. Mine have a bit more of a sort of digital spin on them. So I'll just try to focus more on those as opposed to reiterating the same things. So South Granville High School is a rural metro Title I public school. It's in Granville County, right down towards the south. So I drive in from South Durham every day. It's not too much of a commute, but we have students from all around Granville County because there's school choice here. So they could be from really a more rural part of the county, or they could essentially be from almost in Durham. We have about 655 students total. This year, we have 103 full seniors and about 20 minimum credit junior seniors. 38% of those seniors or more are low income. We have about half of our students are white and about half are Black or Hispanic Latinx, with a smaller proportion of multiracial and then Native American or Asian students. And then our FAFSA rate last year was about 60.2%, which was +8% from the 2019-2020 school year when COVID had started. So that was before my time. And then as of last year, out of our 158 graduating seniors that we had then, we had about 50% who were intending on four-year college. We had 34% going to community college for a combination of either trade or career-based programs, a lot of health sciences, and then also a lot of those students who would have maybe otherwise gone to a four-year school when starting out. A lot of them went for some of those like guaranteed transfer co-admissions programs. Those were very popular last year, just because students, especially with COVID and financial difficulties, really wanted to be closer to home for a little bit. I don't think all of them were quite ready to take that step to move away. And then we had about 19% who were either intending on full-time work, were undecided, or were just unfortunately unreachable. Next slide, please. So the main thing that I focused on, because we were either virtual or hybrid and bouncing back and forth for most of the year, the main thing that I focused on was outreach on all fronts, and digital was digital and the internet was just the primary resource that I had available because again, students were so rarely in the building. So I just focused on any virtual outreach method that I could use. So Zoom and Google Meet, my county allows both of those. One interesting trick that I did learn, obviously we all, I think at this point know how to use Zoom and Google Meet, but one more uncommon trick that I learned was that if you are the one sharing your screen with a student, you can actually give that student remote control of your screen. So kind of like a screen, literally they get to use the mouse, they can type, they control the whole thing. And that actually helps if their bandwidth is being all used up by connecting via Zoom. They can kind of hop on your bandwidth, so to speak, by controlling your screen through Zoom. So I've actually done that for a few FAFSAs for students who are otherwise their computer couldn't handle both Zoom and being on the internet, so to speak. Email I tried to use for just blasting out as many resources as I could, English and Spanish. I sent out FAFSA step-by-step guides with images. Those are from the old FAFSA, so I have to update the images this year. But obviously bolding and highlighting key info in emails, because I don't know if your students are like mine, but mine have kind of limited reading comprehension. They sort of like see every fifth word, I think. So I really try to make it very, very glaringly obvious what it is they need to look at in the email, because they're probably only going to look at about half of that anyway. And then hyperlink all the important info I can, because otherwise you get a lot of long URL clutter. That's usually pretty easy to do on Chrome. There's like a little tag button you can do to just kind of like blend the link in the actual terms. Newsletters as well, going out through email, again, using those hyperlinks. There are a lot of great different sites for templates. Canva is, I think, the most popular free one. You can make PDFs or Instagram posts that you share out. So like I have this financial aid one that I did this year for my most recent FAFSA night. It's a fun way to make it like kind of engaging and, quirky or fun or interesting for students. If you have access to Adobe Spark or something like MailChimp, those can also be helpful for building newsletters. I also mentioned social media info posts. I guess the only thing I'd say about that is that if you have a link in something that you're posting on social media, because students are going to have to like type it in manually, they can't like copy paste it from the picture. If you have some sort of URL shortener, so like a bit.ly link maker or anything along those lines, you can just Google those, find them online. That makes it much easier for students to actually type in the link that you're posting about. And then a centralized resource site. So I almost did this at first more for me, but it ended up being very useful for students as well. Every single resource that I shared out, all the things that I would reference, the guides and things like that, I just made a little like Wix online free site that students could use in order to just access all of those old resources. I also posted all the Zoom info sessions or any other, virtual info sessions or meetings or college visits and stuff all to there. So that became really useful, especially for the FAFSA, because it was just a very simple way to connect students and families to that. And then of course, cross-posting everything as well. And then so misconceptions, I think we've gone over quite a few of these. I know we talked about parents being undocumented and parental status. One thing that I really had to emphasize to students who did have undocumented parents was that the personal information on the FAFSA was legally protected. So like not just me saying like, oh no, I'm sure it'll be fine, but that it is literally not legal for other government agencies to access that information, because I had a lot of students who were really resistant to it because of course they didn't want their parents to be deported. Thankfully now deportation based on undocumented status isn't allowed anymore. So that is also, of course, hopefully very encouraging. And then I did have every now and then one of those families that either because they had an older student who hadn't gotten much through the FAFSA, or the parent back in the day didn't, who thought, well, oh, we make too much money, I'm not going to do it. I usually leaned on the merit scholarship angle for that, because a lot of merit scholarships will require the FAFSA anyway, just sort of for administrative purposes. And then of course, all community college aid is going to want the FAFSA as well. So just kind of trying to find any angle to make sure that people know the FAFSA is for them, whether they don't think they'll get anything or whether they don't know anything about it, just making sure that they know this is helpful. It is 100% worth it. Just do it. Unfortunately, I also, of course, have had parents who don't want to pay for their kids' education, just knowing that literally the only reason we need your tax info is to like calculate your supposed family ability to contribute. There is no legal obligation. You're not like signing yourself onto anything. Everything is going to be the responsibility of the student. But of course, that can mean that parents are a little concerned about their kids going into debt, which is what I try to usually emphasize, that you don't have to accept, of course, any part of the award offer that you don't want. I've had plenty of students who take just the gift aid and work study, and then that's enough, or take only part of the loan, that kind of thing. So I think that's something that my families have usually been very unaware of, that has been very helpful to them. And then I know we're running a little below on time, so I'll go really quickly on this one, but just budgeting time for flexibility, assuming students are especially, but also families are going to miss or have to reschedule their meetings. I kind of just did that for my sanity. I just sort of assumed everything would be rescheduled at least 2 or 3 times. That way, if it wasn't, I was not as disappointing. And then always following up with any links, resources, or info mentioned in those meetings. Last year, I spent a little bit more time and I would make like an individual Google Doc for each student and just paste all of our resources onto there so they had something they could easily access because our school uses Google Classroom. But you can also just do it in an email as long as there's some kind of digital hard copy that they can reference afterwards. And you can do the same with links from your recordings. And then I believe we've already talked about raffles. So the only thing I would add about that is that if you're allowed to use Visa gift cards with your employee budget, I found those are really equitable general favorites because that way students can use them for gas if they need or for food or whatever it is they would like. And that is all I have got for you guys. So thank you so much. Sorry for kind of zooming through that.
Kira, thank you, and to all of our panelists. We so appreciate all of your efforts in preparing these slides for us and then showing us your excitement around this topic. So let's, as an audience for our panelists, let's show them that gratitude today in our meeting. And so, Chris, if you are able to let us know if there are questions at this time for the panelists, things that have come up in the chat or in Q&A.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions out there about raffles. How did you guys get the money? Did you use community resources? And then I think there were also questions just about autocrat. So I know that one of the greatest things about this FAFSA network is that we are able to connect one another to learn from each other. So I know Rebecca has placed her email in the chat line as well. But do any of you want to pop in real quick about just the raffles and how you were able to secure those items? Or answer them in the chat if that's helpful.
Yeah, I can share real quick. I know Kira's about to share. Kira and I know each other, so we're just making fun. Our school had some leftover funding from COVID that we were able to utilize. We kept our budget to about $500 for all of those prizes. That is not necessary. Students still love sweatshirts or cheaper things, even like bedding for dorm rooms can be a little bit more affordable. And that was something that we ended up using as one of the prizes too for this coming year. But I will say that Walmart and any of your local organizations, Walmart's a great option. If you talk to or have a connection with them through your school, you may be able to find prizes or they can donate something. But there are always ways to reach out to community members for sure.
Absolutely, and I'll just echo off of that. We were able to do a combination of having some money available in our budget as well as some community sponsorships. We actually reached out to our local Target, and Target provided individual college themed gift baskets for the students. They also provided some electronics that we were able to raffle off, like 50-inch TVs and things of that nature. And then also sharing this information with the community via social media, it just built a lot of traction and opened up the doors for our parents and other local organizations to ask how they could get involved and help in promoting this for our students.
I'll just add on to that I know one of the other advisors in my core last year, he used the Donors Choose website. So I guess it's a little bit like GoFundMe, but you essentially just list out the items that you want, almost like with a registry, and then any donor from the community or from the local business or organization that wants to essentially buy those items for you is allowed to do so. So I know he used those for raffles for things like laptops for his college-bound students. So that's been a useful resource as well.
Thank you so much for all of those comments. Chris, is there anything else that is that needs to be addressed in terms of the chat or Q&A?
I think we can continue on, and then if there's any other things that come through the chat, we'll go ahead and answer them.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So on the slide, you're seeing sort of a captured photo of the landing page for the tracker. And then the points on the left side of the slide are just a reminder to us that this is publicly available FAFSA completion data. It helps us understand individual schools' progress but we can also look at district level progress, and we can find a lot of data on the demographics of each school in each district. It's easy to filter, which you'll see in the live demo in just a moment, and it can help us to make comparison across schools and across districts. So I'm going to take us out of the PowerPoint and do a live demo of our tracker. And how does that look? Can we see the live tracker on the screen? Good. All right. So what you're seeing when you land on this page is in the center of the page, you are seeing Presley High School here at the top with the bar graph. And then as you scroll down, you're seeing the FAFSA completion numbers decrease. So we have the highest FAFSA completion at the top, and then a declining graph as we go, and the name of the school on the left. So that's sort of an at a glance image as soon as you land. But then as you can see these opportunities here at the top where we can search the tracker by a school name. We can search the tracker by a school district name. We can also search by a geographical density category, rural, metro, non-metro, statewide, school, suburban, urban, etc. We can use this county section here to track just by county or multiple counties together. So let's say we wanted to look at the comparison of Alamance, Alexander, and Allegheny. We would select those three and it would narrow down the center of the tracker data system to just those three. We could also search by a school type. So we have charter and traditional public schools located on this page, and by senior class size, large, medium, small, or very small. And so students of color percentages can be navigated by simply moving that bar across, and just by taking that to a 40% range and a low income percent student range to 50, we've then narrowed the selection in the center data system to those schools reflecting those points. So I'll get everything back to the starting point and show you then how to find our cooperative innovative high schools and private schools. So along these top tabs, we've landed here on the home, but to navigate to the cooperative innovative high school tab, we would select CIHS. Again, you can search by name of school alphabetically or by the county. And so we will find our Green Early College High School. And then it shows us the submission from 2021, the completion, the submission from 21-22 school year, and then the completion. So you may be asking, why is there a difference in the number of submitted in 2021? And why is that larger than the completion? So we know that when we use this tool in combination with the Finish the FAFSA tool in the Pro Center on the CFNC login, we can see that there are students that have actually submitted a FAFSA, but there was an error of some sort and it was not actually completed. So the error might be something like a student did not sign the FAFSA, or the parent didn't sign it, or perhaps the social security numbers don't match. And so that's what creates the discrepancy. And it alerts that high school counselor to the fact that that is a good reach out. A call to action to that is you reach out to that family and you say, I noticed you submitted your FAFSA, but it's not completed and this is why. And so Glenn, I appreciated that in your comment, the combination of using the tracker and the Finish the FAFSA in Pro Center tools to really hone in on that individual advising. And so I'll also just show you under private schools, we have listed alphabetically private schools in North Carolina and the searchable tools here. And this section of the CIHS and private school, this tool here is that you can use a senior class size. So you would select the school and put in the senior class size of 35 graduates, and then you would be able to narrow down the estimated completion rate if that was your number of seniors. So getting back to a couple of more tools here about high school, I really like this tab. Again, here's your ability to search alphabetically for your high school, and when you land on your particular school, you have all of this data embedded on this site. Again, the difference in the pie chart of the number of completed or not completed in terms of the number of seniors, and then the submitted versus completed. Again, the discrepancy is because there might be some errors in those that are not completely finished and submitted to the FAFSA. And then there's a monthly FAFSA completion rate graph that is comparing 2021 and 2022. And we can see here the uptick by month in the 2021-22 school year. And as you hover over, you're going to see the actual completion rate percent and the month in which that has been tracked. And then you will also see an About District page when you're navigating this live tracker, looking at the low income percent, students of color, senior class, the number of schools in the district, and the geodensity category. And this is great district level data for your school administration, for your district administration, and your community and school board members to see and track how all schools in your district are doing in comparing year over year. Chris, if you want to jump in at this point, I know I've covered the things at the top and some of the tools of the tracker. Is there anything else you want to add that I may have missed?
No, I think the biggest question that oftentimes that we get through our FAFSA alias, email alias, is what should I do if I can't find my school on the FAFSA tracker? So typically there are two reasons why your school may not show up. One is that public schools with no enrollment data is available. So if you have any questions, or perhaps you're a school that started 3 years ago and this is the first year that you're having seniors, and for some reason that data is not flowing through for us to be able to see, we can help to kind of troubleshoot and understand where that data discrepancy is coming from. We've done that for a couple of schools this year. And then within 3 weeks, we were able to pull them live on the tracker. And also, schools that have less than 5 students who have completed the FAFSA are not listed on the tracker due to privacy reasons. So once a school has more than 5 FAFSA completions, their data will be included in the tracker. So I just want to make sure that we know that we're learning alongside all of you. There are multiple data places that Carolina Demography, our partner in this, that's helping to pull and analyze and ensure that our data is loading correctly. We are constantly making sure that we are looking out for you all. Tony, I don't know if you want to go ahead and mention First and FAFSA and how you all can work between the two tools to best help support your efforts.
So the First and FAFSA, you mean the Finish the FAFSA report?
I'm sorry,
Chris?
Finish the FAFSA.
Yeah, so the Finish the FAFSA report is a report managed and offered through the Professional Center tools on the CFNC website. And in order for the school level counselor or administrator to have access to that report, they would reach out to the contact information on the CFNC website. And perhaps, Chris, we could add that in our follow-up link handout that we send out. And that's critical to get access to that report so that you can see, and it's updated daily data on your students in your senior class or your graduating class who are submitting and completing FAFSAs, and then use those error tools to help determine what might be the reason why it didn't completely submit. And then of course, using the state level data on the First and FAFSA tracker for the district and the school level comparisons and growth. Chris, you mentioned a few of the frequently asked questions on the tracker. I'll just continue to say that, remember, the private and the CIHS schools are located on the tabs above the tracker, and the charter schools and traditional high schools are located within the tracker. And how often is the tracker updated? We know that federal data is released weekly and it's entered into the FAFSA with about a 7 to 10 day window. So the live tracker today is showing the data as of January 21st. The pie charts that you saw me demonstrate are updated weekly, and the line charts are updated monthly. And then if you want to take a look at the historical data from 2020 school year and the frequently asked questions, they are archived at the bottom of the tracker page. I'd like to just share next, in our last few minutes together, the NCAN, National College Attainment Network, most recent slide on high school graduates in North Carolina who were unable to complete the FAFSA, left $126 million in Pell Grants on the table in 2021. And this slide is courtesy of NCAN, and it lets us let's just allow that to sink in for a moment. So we know that the FAFSA is critical to the process of going to college, especially for students who need financial aid, including the Pell Grant and the NC Assist loan. For students who completed the FAFSA and met eligibility, the average Pell Grant for the North Carolina graduating class in 2021 was $4,644, which can pay for all or a portion of college costs, depending on the cost of attendance, which includes the tuition and fees at North Carolina community colleges and universities. To support students across North Carolina and to reach the 2 million by 2030 goal, we must also direct FAFSA and college access supports to students and their families, including students that may be eligible for the Pell Grant, students who would be their first in their family to attend college, students who didn't have college on their radar until recently, and then students who have circumstances that make the steps to college difficult. And some of our panelists today mentioned different types of students that fall into that category. For instance, Glenn, I think you mentioned the McKinney-Vento Act and the students that are homeless or at risk of being homeless. So by attending and participating in this network, we are challenging each other to be that mentor, that counselor, that advisor who can draw more attention to the value and the necessity to complete and submit the FAFSA. And my colleague Chris has been involved in this work for Finish the FAFSA across North Carolina and is going to highlight now the 2022 FAFSA challenge. And in the last moment, Chris, if we could just do that, and then we'll just conclude to keep everybody at our hour time limit.
Great. Well, everybody, again, thank you so much for attending today. Our 2022 challenge is kicking off already. We received some great feedback from many of you that you wanted to see the challenge really come up in a shorter period of time earlier in the year so that you could really drive that sense of urgency and awareness throughout your schools and be able to connect many more of our students to the aid that they need. So we are running the challenge through March 31st. Again, FAFSA completion results will use federal data that's compiled and analyzed by Carolina Demography with the closest federal reporting period to March 31st. For those on the FAFSA growth, we'll be comparing 2021 and 2022 completion using high school senior enrollment counts from the North Carolina Department of Education's average daily membership with reporting from month 2. So this is very similar to last year with the exception for the date range in which we are capturing information on. You'll notice on that link that we have also we'll also be posting a monthly leaderboard. The leaderboard that's currently out there are for our leaders with completion rates through December 30th. We will be updating on February 8th with a public post on February 9th, our tracker, as well as our leaderboard with January's month. So we are excited for the work that you are all doing. We're really proud of your efforts. I want to make sure that not only am I lifting up that the challenge will last through March 31st and those winners will be announced before or on April 30th. Winners will be winning $500 to support your college access efforts at your school. But with that sense of urgency, we are also posting up a pop-up challenge. And that pop-up challenge that's running now through February 15th is any school that completes 50% of their completion, FAFSA completion rates, will receive $100 by the end of that period of time. It just takes us that next reporting period to be able to get full February 15th completion numbers, but we will be sending out to any school, and you'll see some of these leaderboard schools, they are already at their 50%. So this is a great way to boost those efforts with that extra $100 to do your FAFSA completion efforts throughout the spring. This can help with everything from raffles to ways that you can bring food in and other kinds of supplies for you to do some of your college access efforts, including FAFSA completion pieces.
So thank you so much, Chris. And then just a quick moment, I'd just like to say, ask all of you to bookmark and see firstinfafsa.com. Use the Finish the FAFSA information from Outreach at NCSEAA. Reach out. I've listed my contact information, Tony@myfuturenc.org. And schedule a district level call if that is a good next step for you. Use the resources that we've provided, and certainly view the webinar on FAFSA tricky situations that we have previously recorded for you with our experts at CFNC. And then finally, before we conclude today, let me just share that our next FAFSA Network webinar is March 16th from 10 to 11 a.m. We're going to be having experts speaking about the Longleaf Community Grant, sort of that overview and the requirements, and the community college FAFSA outreach experts. We heard a few of our panelists today talk about how important that connection is, and to have that community college financial aid expert on speed dial. And we'll hear from them as they help us understand what happens after the student submits the FAFSA, what the awards letter looks like, what does verification mean, and how we can help our students with those next steps. So I thank you all again. We're just a few minutes over, but we appreciate you. We appreciate our panelists, and we look forward to seeing you all on March 16th. Thank you so much.